All right, welcome back. So, in our last deep dive, we really hammered out the why. Today, we're jumping straight into the how. This is it. We're going to build the exact framework you can use to, well, to navigate your reality and manifest that sovereign self we've been talking about. So, let's get right into it.
But first, we've got to tackle something. A central idea that might feel a little disruptive. You know, we're always told to seek peace, right? To find that stillness. But what if that static, unchanging peace we're all chasing is actually a trap? What if the very nature of existence is constant motion?
And that right there, that leads us to the absolute core principle of the sovereign eclectic framework. See, it's not about finding some fragile, static piece that can be shattered in a second. No way. It's about cultivating a dynamic, active balance, something that can withstand, well, anything. This is your greatest defense. It's your greatest tool. Okay, so here's the game plan for today. First, we'll dive into that paradox of balance. Then, we're going to break down the two core parts of our compass, the 0, which is the unseen order, and the 1, conscious manifestation. After that, we'll put it all together in what I call the 1 + 1 = 3 synthesis. And finally, we'll talk about what this means for your journey forward.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the paradox of balance. Look, the goal isn't to just stop moving. In fact, think about it. When you try to force perfect stillness, you'd usually just end up feeling more anxious, right? More fragile. The real power, it comes from moving with the flow of reality, not fighting against it.
Okay, now we get to our first core concept. Section 2 is all about the 0. And listen, this isn't about nothingness, not even close. This is the foundation of everything, that unseen order, the source of all potential. So try to think of the 0 like this. It's that deep, silent potential that exists before anything actually takes form. You know, in Taoism, they talk about the Tao that can't be named. Well, the 0 is kind of like the part of that huge, unknowable source that we can start to wrap our heads around. It's that perfect, latent order that everything springs from. And what's so cool here is how this ancient wisdom lines up with some pretty fundamental principles. This Hermetic text, the Kybalion, says everything is in constant vibration, and that is the 0. It's not empty space, it's a field of pure potential, vibrating at a frequency so incredibly high it looks like it's standing still, kind of like a fan blade spinning so fast it just becomes a blur. You know, this totally reframes how we look at the world, doesn't it? What we see as chaos, maybe it's just an orderliness we haven't figured out yet, a really complex pattern that's beyond our current perception. The 0 is that hidden structure, that perfect order hiding underneath all the seeming randomness of life.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking right now. Hold on a minute. Haven't I always been taught that meditation is all about stilling the mind? And look, that's a totally fair question, but it's based on a really common misunderstanding of what mastery actually looks like.
This old story about the Zen master Soyin Shaku, it just hits the nail on the head. See, enlightenment isn't about just sitting around doing nothing. His students were looking for rest, but the master, he was dynamically engaged, never wasting a single moment. He was the embodiment of active, flowing balance, not some passive stillness.
So here's the bottom line. It's all about this contrast. Chasing static stillness, it's like trying to balance on one leg by tensing up every single muscle. You just get shaky, fragile, anxious. But dynamic balance, that's like a surfer riding a huge wave. They're flowing, they're strong, and they're perfectly centered right in the middle of all that chaos. That's the state we're after.
So if 0 is this field of infinite potential, the big question is, how do we tap into it? Well, that brings us right to Section 3 and the introduction of the 1. This is the active part. This is conscious manifestation. This is the tool we use to turn all that unseen potential into our actual reality. Simply put, the 1 is your conscious choice. It's the action you decide to take, the word you speak, the sovereign decision you make. It's the force that literally reaches into that vibrational field of the 0 and pulls a possibility out into the physical world. It's the bridge between what could be and what is.
Yeah, we all know this one, right? Action speaks louder than words. It's a concept we can all get behind. We value doing things more than just talking about them. And that's true, to a point.
But is that the whole story, really? I mean, if you just act without any understanding, without any real intention, are you truly manifesting anything, or are you just reacting blindly? This is where things get a little deeper. And this brings us to the action/word paradox. In Zen, you have Dharma, which is the teaching, the word, the knowledge, and then you have Zen itself, which is the practice, the action. True manifestation, it needs both. Action without the knowledge of Dharma is just blind impulse. But knowledge without the practice of Zen, it's sterile, it's useless. You have to bring them together.
And bringing them together, well, that leads us to the most powerful part of this whole framework, the 1 + 1 = 3 synthesis. This is where the magic really happens. This is where two separate things combine to create something totally new, something way bigger than the sum of its parts.
So here's the breakdown. Step 1, you start with the awareness of 0, that infinite field of potential. Step 2, you add your 1, your conscious, sovereign action or choice. And the result of that interaction? It's not just a simple outcome. It's a 3, an emergent meaning, a brand new reality.
Let's put it in an equation. Think of it like this. The first one is you, your conscious choice. The second one is the universe, that field of 0. Now, when they interact, they don't just equal 2. No. They create a third thing, the 3. And that 3 is your sovereign self, that integrated, aware being who is actively co-creating their reality.
And what's absolutely fascinating is how perfectly this lines up with the work of Carl Jung. He wrote that to truly become an individual, to differentiate yourself, you have to become conscious of the invisible relationship you have with your unconscious. This third thing, this sovereign self we're talking about, is exactly that. It's the integrated self that emerges when your conscious mind, the 1, forms a real relationship with the vast potential of the unconscious, the 0.
Okay, so that's the theory. But look, this is all about application, right? It's not just an intellectual exercise. So in our final section, let's talk about your journey forward, how you can actually start using the 0-1 compass in your own life right now.
So from here, there are two really clear paths you can take. The first one is all about knowledge. If you want to talk about these ideas, share what you're learning, and connect with the community, you can join the free conversation over at the link in the description. The second path, well, that's all about practice. If you're ready to apply the stuff directly, then there's the Sovereign Self Protocol. The Sovereign Self Protocol really is the definitive how-to. It's a structured, step-by-step program that's designed to guide you through the deep application of these principles. We're talking the practical work of metanoia, which means fundamentally changing your mind, and integrating your shadow, those parts of yourself you've pushed away. It's really for those who are ready to go from just theory to real transformation.
So, we're going to end with a question, and this one is for you. You have the compass now. You understand the relationship between the infinite potential of the 0 and the incredible power of your conscious choice, the 1. So the only question left is this: what new reality, what emergent meaning, what sovereign self are you going to create? The journey starts now.